Here we go. How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. I hope you're all ready. I hope you got beverages, such as a nice strong cup of coffee. Oh, that's good. I hope you got pens and papers. Well, maybe not sticky notes, but it depends. Whatever you want to do. Some way to take notes wouldn't hurt because this is a good one. This is a good one. And so let's just jump right in. I promised you there were 3 things that your content needed to have in order to become really irresistible. And first, let me tell you a little bit about why I even feel like I can say something like that. I've been making content, coaching on content, and teaching people how to use their content to get their clients for about a decade now. Hey, Ken. And look, when you've worked with enough people, the patterns become pretty self-evident. They become pretty clear. It gets to the point where you sort of have to be willfully ignoring them to not see those patterns. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So a little bit about the kinds of content that a lot of people post. Let me rephrase that. People will often come to me or in our conversations will say to me, but I post all the time and I just don't get any engagement. Well, there are a few kinds of posts you don't need to waste your time on if engagement that leads to conversations is your goal. So I will often go and look at these profiles, and really what I'll see is a lot of the social, the Facebook equivalent of retweets, right? You're just sharing somebody else's post. Hey, Jen. So you're sharing somebody else's post, which is the same as quoting somebody else, basically. And when you quote somebody else, you're saying, here, give them credit. This is hopefully when I say it that way, you can realize, oh yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. You see, your content, philosophically and theoretically, your content is you, right? We're all on social media where we can't actually engage and interact with each other, like in the sense that I can't reach out and pat you on the shoulder or poke you in the eye, depending on what you deserve. But my content engages with your content. And so you gotta be able to think like that. If all you're doing is rehashing other people's stuff, maybe you're sharing videos from Instagram, that seems to be pretty common. Anything besides your original voice and thought would be the equivalent of going to, let's say, a cocktail party, and you sort of mingle up to one group of people, and in that group of people, there's one person who just continually keeps quoting other people. That's all they do. Now, this may seem like a silly comparison to you, but I assure you, in terms of how we sort of register that when you do it, it's not a silly comparison at all. It's exactly the same thing. Most of us, the vast majority of us, and you can see this on the profiles of the kind of people who do this, there's no engagement. Nobody cares. Or maybe you get a whole bunch of people just sort of blandly affirming the thing, the meme or the quote or whatever. That doesn't give you any authority. That doesn't bring people closer to you. That doesn't give you the opportunity to sort of like have those people grow closer to you so that you can, offer them your stuff, basically. And so there are 3 words that I want you to think about. And those 3 words are reciprocity, authority, and intimacy. And I was thinking about this yesterday in preparation for this live stream. And it's kind of funny because really good content could be thought of as a seduction. It really could. It really could be thought of as a seduction. So if you're seducing someone or if you're being seduced, if you can relate to that, then, you'll understand why reciprocity is important. In a seduction, reciprocity is giving a little for what you get. And there's a wonderful dance that occurs. Well, when it comes to positioning yourself and marketing yourself, there's a different wonderful dance that occurs that's based on reciprocity. I don't want to get too nerdy on this in case you guys watching are not sort of marketing nerds in the way that I sort of am, but reciprocity is the most powerful of what are called the ethical principles of persuasion. Or if you really want to geek out on it, the EPOPs, but that, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But the ethical principles of persuasion were outlined by Robert Cialdini in his book, Persuasion, right? Yeah, that's right. Or was it Influence? Anyway, Cialdini wrote the landmark book on persuasion and influence. And in it, through exhaustive study, he came up with a list of what he called the ethical principles of persuasion. And so there were things like fear of missing out. There was reciprocity. There was authority. I don't remember all of them. And the reason I don't remember all of them is because, quite frankly, reciprocity is the most powerful, and you don't have to know them all if you understand reciprocity. And reciprocity is very simple. When you give first, people feel more relaxed, more okay to give back. And so you've got to get people to give a certain sequence of things to you. And a lot of what you probably don't like about marketing is because a lot of direct response marketers focus mostly on fear of missing out and scarcity. Scarcity was another one. And so scarcity and fear of missing out go hand in hand. And what that is basically aggressively marketing to fear. And, it works, but many of us don't like it. Many of us don't like that feeling of constantly having to pump fear into people just to get, onto a sales call. And so reciprocity is the most potent of all of them. And reciprocity simply means give value in this case. So your content needs to give value. You got to give real value, though. And so what I find is that a lot of people completely miss reciprocity. It's right. They're not even close to having that exist in their content. A lot of what they do is just a lot of ego basting of their own egos, disguised as looking important, disguised as value. And if you've been in the game long enough, you'll see a lot of us talking about fake value posts and stuff like that. Fake value posts versus real value posts is the difference really is whether you're leading with reciprocity in mind, actually giving people value, or whether it's kind of this ego exercise for you. And, we kind of sense it. We kind of know what it is. So for instance, if you were to come into my group and post a big, long fake value post, I and most of the people in the group would instantly recognize it for what it was. I would kick you out of the group. I would delete the post, not because I don't want other people posting in the group, but because everybody knows that's a phishing tactic. Now, real reciprocity is different. If you really honestly and genuinely share something valuable, that's different. So reciprocity is, you could think of it cynically as lowering the resistance that people naturally have to being sold. But reciprocity is so much more than that. It creates such a good feeling, right? And I don't know about you, but when I'm doing work, that's what I want. I want the people I'm trying to appeal to have a good feeling about me, right? I'd rather have you understand that I'm a guy who will work with you and help you than to have you think of me as a guy who has all the answers and just wants to, part you with your money or something. And so reciprocity. Now, let's talk about the next one, authority. Authority can be accomplished by simply demonstrating that you know what the hell you're talking about. This one is particularly awkward when people who don't have it yet try to fake it. Or maybe they didn't read the room right. And so their attempts at authority sound contrived and thin and flat and insincere. So how do you create authority in your own content? Well, you have to know what you're talking about. That's obviously and absolutely the number one thing. You've got to have skill. When you have skill, share that skill. and explain it and talk about it and elucidate it and let us know that you've got that skill. And that's really it. That's really it. So a lot of authority. Oh, let me rephrase that. Reciprocity, authority, and intimacy all sort of live on a Venn diagram. Let me show you what I mean. So this is the world's sloppiest Venn diagram. Reciprocity, authority, and intimacy. It's kind of like this, if you can see this. So we've got reciprocity, authority, and intimacy. And this is where you want to sort of strive to be. Right in the middle of those three things. You want to have a little bit of them in all of your content. And yeah, you can focus more on one in one piece of content. Sorry, guys, I got like an eyelash. You can focus more on another in a different piece, but they all kind of overlap. And so the last one is intimacy. Intimacy. Oh, this is so potent, so good. You've got to be willing to share experiences from your life. You got to let us know who you are. But then you've got to be able to share it too. And what I mean by that is, well, there's no getting around the fact that to be successful, especially if you're at the level where you just want to get clients from your profile, which is nothing wrong with that. But even if you want to get clients from a more sophisticated process, like a community, you've got to have strong writing chops. You've got to be a good writer. You just have to be. There's simply no shortcut for that piece, right? And one way that we can know if you're a good writer is if you can create that intimacy by sharing parts of your life, sharing your reflections of your perspective, sharing moments of your experience, and then ideally relating them to what you do. And so every time someone comes to me and says, I just can't get clients, I just can't, this just isn't working for me. If I look into their reciprocity, authority, and intimacy on their content, I find that at least one of them, typically two or three, are either weak or not present at all. Now, let me tell you a little bit about why these things work, because this is kind of where it really gets good. After doing as much research as I've done, and as much content as I've created, and as much studying it as I've studied, what I realized is that these are the three things that when they work together, they create a sense within people of who you are. And I can't stress this enough. If we don't really feel like we know who you are, we're probably not going to be keen to buy from you if there's another person we know of who has a similar solution and we feel like we know that person. We feel like if that person has demonstrated reciprocity, authority, and intimacy, almost certainly we're going to choose them, because the psychology here is actually very simple. We want to do business with people that we like and people that we feel are like us, right? If you have a choice of 10 service providers and one of them really seems like a great person, every time you're going to go to that person. And so this is what you need to accomplish with your content. You need to create this sense through your writing and your content of who you are and let us get access to you. And that's the intimacy piece. Now, obviously, you have to have other skills too, like you got to be able to sell. You got to be able to make and explain your offers. And those things actually both come back to your writing skill as well. So let's recap this a little bit and see what we've covered here. I promised you at the beginning of this video and in the posts that led up to it that I would teach you about the three elements that have to be present in your content for your content to be powerful enough that it'll help get you clients. And those three elements are reciprocity, authority, and intimacy. And so then I went on and I explained to you, what is reciprocity? Well, reciprocity is giving first. I accomplished this through free trainings, free lead magnets, stuff like that, and it works wonderfully. And then authority. Well, I have authority because I can explain my industry and I have experience, or rather, proof of experience, right? And so that creates authority. And then intimacy. For me, intimacy is sharing honestly about the things in my life that another person might be ashamed to share. The way I grew up, the kind of person I used to be, all of those things. That's intimacy because I'm sharing with you. And those three things are the things that create rapport and create trust and create this feeling that if we were to work together, I'd take care of you, which I will, and I do. And so, by the way, it's also very helpful not to be completely and totally narcissistic and full of shit. It's very helpful not to be those things in the long run. Unfortunately, if you are those things, you can fool some people, probably grab some quick cash, and maybe bail before the FTC catches wind of you. But generally speaking, you're here because you want a real coaching business, I assume. You're here because you want to be able to get high ticket clients, serve them at a high level, and have that sense of satisfaction and gratification from helping other people through your skill set and life experience. And in order to be able to do that, you've got to be able to convey your skill set and your life experience, which is where these three kind of emotional content pillars come into play: reciprocity, authority, and intimacy. When you get these in your content and you're consistent, you'll find that it's far easier to get people into conversations. And you'll also find that there are more people who are ready to get into conversations with you, and that it's easier to have those conversations. And so that's it in a nutshell. Now, having said that, I want to let you know that if you, let me rephrase here, or rather, let me back up. One of the things that I think is the biggest reason why more aspiring coaches don't succeed is because you just don't enjoy marketing. Am I right about that? I've seen a few people on here that I've talked to before, and I can tell you with those conversations, these people don't enjoy it. They learn it because they feel they have to, but they don't enjoy it. And when you don't enjoy it, you will find ways to deprioritize it. You'll find ways to put it off, right? And so for me, for the last several years, my guiding question has been, how can I make this easier for coaches like you, for entrepreneurs like you? How can I solve the marketing and client acquisition part for you? And I got to admit, I'm a lot proud of the way that I've solved that problem. And it's basically that I do it for you. That's basically it. Is I'll take it off your plate. Now, in many cases, you'd be right to assume that for someone, an expert, to take it off your plate for you, it would be a massive investment. And I'm here to tell you that with me in this case, for your content creation, the investment is only a few $100 a month. Yeah. And what I'm doing is literally creating the content for you week in and week out, and making sure that it touches on reciprocity, authority, and intimacy. And I send it to you every Monday morning. This is what I call my done for you content subscription. And so just a soft little kind of what I call a call to action here. If you'd like to talk about my done for you content subscription, and whether it's a good fit for you, and whether it would work for you to have someone else basically handle your content for you, just tag me in the group in a post and say, let's chat about content. Yeah, let's just say that. So if you'd like to learn more about it, no pressure, of course, but if you'd like to learn more about it, tag me in the group and say, let's chat about content. And I'll get into a conversation with you and we'll just see what makes sense. But in the meantime, just remember, if your content doesn't seem to be landing with people, it's one or more of these three things: reciprocity, authority and intimacy. You've got to put those into your content, and that's what makes it have what I would call emotional resonance with people. That's what makes it stick. That's what makes people start to sort of have a different viewpoint of you, which is exactly what you want. I hope this has been helpful. And again, if you'd like to talk to me about it, just tag me in the group and say, let's chat about content. I'll follow up with you. We'll just see what's what. Okay. All right, you guys, thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next one.